All right, Tanner, what's fear?
What's fear? I think all
Yeah.
fear actually stems from our fear of death. No matter what fear it is, I think all fears come from a fear of death in some form or another. Stems from a fear of death. Whether it's fear of criticism, fear of a goal, an idea, I don't know, fear of anything, I think. I'm trying to remember where I got that idea from, that whole philosophy. I think it was maybe Conversations with God. I don't know. One book taught me that like all fears stem from our fear of death, which is the only way to overcome fears, in my opinion, is facing the concept of death. I think I just posted about this actually. Shit, I did. It was about scrolling. Yesterday I posted. What did I say? Oh, scrolling is endless. Life isn't. And I'm gonna die one day. Oh, this is all coming out right in the moment. So the reason I posted that was because I was looking in the mirror and I saw a gray hair, a single one. And I like pulled it out and I was staring at it and I was like, oh my God. And it like made life really intense for me for a moment. I was like, I'm gonna die one day. And I had spent a little too much time yesterday scrolling and I was pissed about it. And I was like staring at this gray hair and I was like, scrolling is endless. And I was like, fuck, man, but my life is not gonna be endless. And I am going to die one day. And I guess to kind of put things into perspective, what would you like? How would you describe fear? What do you think fear comes from?
I think fear is the same as darkness, and darkness is nothing but the absence of light. So I think fear is nothing but the absence of faith. So I think if you don't have something that you're working towards in terms of faith, then you're falling into fear, which is regression. As faith is progression, fear is regression. And so I think essentially, in simplest terms, I think that's what that is in my head. Is faith is going downhill, fear or faith is going uphill while fear is going downhill.
When you say darkness, do you mean like uncertainty or the unknown?
Yeah, you could describe it that way.
Okay. It's like the not knowing. That's why we fear death. It's because it's the unknown of what comes after. It's like even though some of us may have a faith, a religious practice, there's still an aspect of the unknown. When you see somebody die, you're like, I think they go somewhere, but I don't fully know. And so it's that fear behind it of like, I'm not 100%. I don't know. Um, and I think some of us like to think that we like truly know, but it's the difference of like, I can walk into my bedroom and know what's exactly in there, right? I can walk into my bedroom right now and I know exactly what's in that room. I can't I can't know exactly what's in the afterlife right now. Like in this moment, I don't know what's exactly in the afterlife, and that unknowing is what I think cultivates that fear. It's like some of us are like, oh, we're gonna be, reunited with loved ones, or we're gonna meet God, or we're gonna go into the nothing, and we're gonna, you know, be dissolved into the earth. We don't fully know. We have like an idea, but you can't. It's not like walking into like your bedroom and I know I've got like my scale, my like workout equipment. I know I've got my bed. I know exactly what color the sheets are. I know exactly what clothes are in my closet, whatever. So like walking into that unknown room. I think fear is that like unknown. So I agree with you on like the darkness part. What would be your like what would be your philosophy around conquering fear, would you say?
See, and that's a tough one in my head. Where do I want to take this? I think fear is short-minded, while faith is you're seeing a big picture. Just as, as you put it in terms of death, is yeah, we all die. Yeah, our lives are short. And then the aspect of, the big picture of humanity, it's extremely short. Your life just goes like that. In terms of the whole universe, I mean, your life is as insignificant as you could make it.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what you do, you could become the most famous person. Like I don't know who that would be. Einstein, like Sure, he's changed the world, and he's famous, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people know about him. But in the grand scheme of things, time will pass, and he would fade into time. The world will die. I mean, and it's just, you can look at the big picture, but which is also terrifying. But at the same time, the more you understand the big picture, I feel like the more you accept uh, of what it is, and whatever big picture that is. Whether in terms of, I mean, that was kind of uh, negative big picture, but in terms of a goal, you see that big picture. You say, I want to make $1 million. You see that big picture, and so tackling those fears has a purpose, has a motive. In terms of in religion, I want to go to heaven, and so tackling the fear of doing these little things is going to be makes sense. And so I think, in the simplest terms, I think that's one of the first steps, is establishing the big picture. Because obviously I have no reason to face any fear if there's no purpose behind it. Why am I not going to go talk to a girl if my intention isn't a relationship? It's not going to happen. I'm not going to talk to any girls. So first of all, I think that goal has to be established, and that big picture has to be painted in your head. And then you go from there.
I have an idea. One way that I have conquered fears in the last few years is putting death at the forefront of my mind. It's thinking about death first. Because I have an innate belief that all fears stem from our fear of death. So fear of being wrong stems from our fear of death. So like when we're in arguments with people and we're afraid of being wrong, that comes from our ego dying, of admitting that we were wrong and having to change our paradigm. And also, like, jumping off of a rock into the ocean. There's a rock up on North Shore in Waimea Bay where you jump off of it into the water. And it's scary, right? You can see through the water, like it's clear blue, like beautiful ocean, but it's scary jumping from like 20 plus feet up. It's scary, like it's intimidating. And there was one day where I jumped off of that rock repeatedly. Just a quick admitting, I took a psychedelic and I jumped off that rock over and over on repeat for 2.5 hours straight. And the reason I was doing that was because I was trying to observe that feeling. Because the first time you ever jump off that rock, it's terrifying. You're really scared. And I noticed that. I noticed that feeling, like right before you're about to jump, you start to overthink it. You're like, oh, shoot. And all these people are jumping off this rock. And I was like, I can do this. I'll be fine. And it's that moment you jump where you make that like agreement with life, that just split second right before you lean forward that's like, I'm going to be okay. I might not, but I'm going to be okay. And it's that agreement with like, I'm just doing it. And I believe I'm going to be okay. And it's that agreement with life and death that like, if I die, I die. But like, I land in the water, it's only 20 feet up. Like I'm perfectly fine. Yeah, it stings my feet a little bit. And then I get back up on the rock and I do it again. And again. And again. I did it on repeat for 2.5 hours straight, just so I could observe that split second feeling right before jumping, that like agreement we make that's like, okay. It's like that. And to get familiar with it. And I came to understand that that's an agreement with death, that like we're saying to death, it's like, I embrace you. And I think we do it a lot in a lot of different ways. Like when I was moving to Hawaii, that was one thing that I had to accept, was like, I may die in that process. Obviously, I was going to be fine, but it was scary. It was terrifying, man. It was freaky. Like I was moving to a place where I had no family. Like I had no friends. And it was that agreement, like, I'm going to be all right. I'll be okay. If I die, I die. You know? And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind, is like, when conquering fears, you have to put death at the forefront. Like, you may die. And in the end, you're gonna die. Like, you will die one day. And I think it's important to understand that. And I think that's where the whole YOLO thing came from back in the day. Like, you only live once, right? That's what we used to say, YOLO, and then we would do something stupid. I think that carries an important like paradigm to think about. It's just like you may only live once. Risk it for the biscuit, man.
I I was in disagreement with you at the beginning. You said fear is basically the fear of anything is the fear of death. But then you said it, you put it in a way that made sense to me, is any fear is the fear of a part of yourself dying. And that's what really put sense in my head. And pretty much fear is basically holding on to something. So I would say at every point in which you face fear, it's like you're standing up on a wall, right? And you either could climb over that wall. It's not a tall wall. You climb over that wall and go see what's on the other side, or you could stay in comfort on your side of the wall. I'd like to think about it that way. And yeah, you're gonna be comfortable. It's comfortable on your side. You know what's there. It's all good. But unless you climb the wall and you actually jump over to the other side, you're not gonna know. Um, but you've heard that it's good on the other side. And the concept of you intentionally jumping off and facing that, it brought back something I heard the other day. Is this guy, he intentionally experienced failure frequently because he believed it was really good for himself. And so what he would do is, for example, like when he was in front of a bunch of friends and stuff, he would intentionally trip and fall. He's like, I want to experience this because I want to be comfortable with the fact that failure is okay. And I think it's the same concept, is instead of finding comfort in what we already know, we should find comfort in knowing and not knowing. I don't know how to put it exactly, but find comfort in knowing that if I am working towards that goal, it is good. And if I am failing along the way, it is good. And the more you experience it, the better you will be at it. And that's the whole concept of failure, is consistently trying, making an effort, and making mistakes along the way, and that'll build you towards that effort. So I definitely agree with you. I do think that's a cool idea of a part of you dying. That's the fear of everything, is the fear of part of you dying.
Hmm. I can't remember what book. Maybe it was The Untethered Soul. I don't know. It was one of those beginning ones that I read a couple of years ago. Um, and it was just that idea that like whatever you're afraid of, it stems from your fear of death. When it comes to us being wrong, we're holding on to something, and the idea that that thing might be wrong means that that thing has to die. Like that idea that we're holding on to that could be wrong has to die, and we don't want to let it die. And people will wage wars over their fear of death because they're afraid of whatever they believe in being wrong. Like religions and you even think of like strong movements like that happened. They fought these movements solely from their fear of death, their fear of being wrong. Like there were people that would join white supremacist movements and thought that their beliefs were right, and they were willing to kill for those beliefs. And that desire to like take life to prove that they're right, that just stemmed from their fear of being wrong. And when we become, I think that's something to keep in mind, is like when we become incredibly passionate and emotional about an idea that we have to understand that that fear is stemming from our fear of death. It's like it's a part of us that may have to die if we're wrong. And I think putting death at the forefront of like, I'm going to die one day anyway, I'd rather let go as much as possible of all of the other things that weigh me down that I might be wrong about, right? Like this belief that this is wrong or that's wrong or this is like, you kind of have to put death at the forefront. And I think of like a lot of our choices in life when it comes to adventure and traveling or living where we want to like go and live. The fear of moving to those places stems from the same fear of death. Is like, I'm safe here, wherever here is. Like whether you've lived there, 18 years, 5 years, or even 3 years, you get comfortable. Like I'm here in Hawaii now and I'm very comfortable and very safe. I have a safe space, and that idea of moving somewhere else scares me. That's the fear of dying. It's a fear of being wrong, of finding safety somewhere else as well. And because I know that it's safe here, right? I'm like, I believe it. This is my safe spot. No other place is as safe as this. But I may be wrong. And you have to embrace it, like, I'm gonna die one day. And I think it ties back to that one time we were talking about the man who lives to 50 versus the man who lives to 100. Say there's a man who lives to 100, but he only lives in one place. And then there's the man that lives only till 50, but he lives in 100 different countries. Who lived more? And my argument was that, like, the man who lived in 100 different countries lived more than the man who lived an extra 50 years. And it's that, like, I'm going to die one day. Like, I am going to die one day, and I would rather risk it, because he was risking it going, say, to 100 different countries. It's a huge risk, right? And I think that you have to put that at the forefront. Like, I am going to die one day, but I want to live as much as I possibly can in this moment. And you have to just eat that death, that fear of death. I don't know if you've got an idea that you wanted to present on that.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a cool thing is I feel like every idea or belief that is introduced in your head and you accept, it then becomes a part of you. And to let go of that idea is you having to let it die. And it goes along that whole concept. So every idea or belief that you're given, and you could be given at a young age, and we tend to carry that with us. I think, I can't remember what it's called, confirmation bias or other things like that, where naturally, as we go older, it becomes harder to let go of these ideas. I see it in a lot of people. I see it in a lot of things in terms of religion and culture. People tend to stick with what they had growing up, and a lot of people don't question it because it is idea. It became a part of them, and to face that fear and break away from that, it takes courage and takes faith, and you have to let go of that and let it die. Let that part of you die. And so in that term of the fear of being wrong, or the fear of letting an idea die, in other words, I think that is the root of a lot of things. Like if you look at arguments, for example, that is the fear of being wrong. I mean, you're yelling at each other. Both you don't admit you're wrong, right? And that goes along my whole idea of basically fear, or every negative emotion is a display of fear. And so if you look at arguments, I mean, that's definitely anger, nervousness, sadness, stress. I believe that's all you displaying fear. Or in your words, I guess, you're afraid of dying. You're afraid of letting a part of that die, rather than displaying emotions of faith and positive emotions. Instead, you're displaying these negative emotions, which are going to lead to negative outcomes and negative consequences way down the road. So, yeah.
It's interesting. It presented this idea, this possibility of overcoming fears. If you have a decision that you're afraid to make in front of you, frame it this way. If you say you've got a decision that you have to make and you're scared of making this decision, frame it as if you're going to die in 6 months, what would you decide to do? Say it's moving. Like, maybe I should move to this place, maybe I shouldn't. If you've got 6 months left to live, what are you going to do? Follow that route. Because I feel like that typically leads us down a better path of experience, of enjoyment, and kind of the pursuit of life. Because that's the biggest problem we have, is we don't live enough in the time that we have. Like my piece earlier was about scrolling. And I think we scroll because it's comfortable, like because we're in one place. We know, we can sit here and scroll and we're not going to be hurt. We'll see something that we don't agree with or whatever, or something that kind of bothers us, and we can sit in our comfort and argue with it from our safe space. But it doesn't actually put us out in the open. And afterwards we always regret it. We never like get done after 8 hours of scrolling and go, well, that was successful, that was productive. Like we never are we ever like that. I got a lot out of that. No. And I think if you frame it as like, I've got 6 months left to live, what do I want to do? And it comes like with any hard or decision we're afraid of making, any hard decision or something that we're struggling with, frame it as like, you got 6 months left to live. What's the decision you're going to make in this scenario? And follow through in that way. I think that's the best way to overcome fear, is just frame it as death at the forefront. Death's coming. What do you want to do? Like it's right behind you. It's on your tail end. What do you want to do? Just an idea.
Yeah, I like to think of it in terms of the future and the past don't exist. It's just now.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do with that? It's just, I know in terms of like procrastination, it's just like, I want to do something. But every time that opportunity presents itself, it's like, you know what? It'll be better if I do it on Monday. Or, you know what? I'm kind of tired today. I won't do it. And so, yeah, you just end up putting it back and not facing that. So in terms of, I think in a lot of terms of facing your fear, I think a lot of us tend to create, I mean, in comparison to making it a wall, I think we tend to add bricks to that wall. We overthink it a lot of the times. And you come up with all these reasons why not to do it. And it's like, oh, this and all of that and all of this. You know, one fear that I have personally been trying to, you know, conquer is being social and talking to people. It's just something that's a fear of mine. And so in terms of like talking to someone, you always come up with like, they may think I'm weird, or you know, they won't like me, or it's not a good time, or I'll see them again. And so you end up like stacking these bricks on that wall and making it almost impossible to get over, when it was just, you know, yay high and you were just easily able to climb over it. And so I think overthinking is huge in terms of these things, when really it's not that bad. And it's just, what do you have to lose? That's the question I think you got to really ask yourself. You know, what if I go and talk to this person? What's the worst that can happen? Oh, they're going to say, you're a freaking weirdo. Get out of here. Oh, who cares, dude? Who cares? That's the worst that can happen. You kidding me? Compared to the best that can happen, the worst that can happen is nothing. In any fear you are facing, just do it. Just go out and do it. And it's like jumping off the cliff. I know we talked about this in previous episodes. Is the longer you sit at the top of that cliff, the more likely you're not going to do that, because you're adding bricks to that wall. You're not going to jump. And so just do it. And I think that also aligns with, you know, the guy that he was tripping on purpose. He kept on falling on purpose. Is, I think you got to build the habit of facing fears. Anytime you get an idea, say, I want to talk to that person. Go talk to that person. Just do it. That brick wall's this low at that point. Just go. It's like, oh, okay. Hey, how's it going? You know, so that's just an example that faces me. Some people have no problem talking to people. But in any scenario of facing any fear, we all have these crazy fears. I think you got to build this instant clicking in your brain to tackle that and go get it and do it. And every opportunity that presents itself, it's like, if you sit here, you get an idea, I should do that. What's stopping you? Go do it. Don't sit there and build that wall and overthink things and throw ideas of why you shouldn't do it or why later would be better to do it. There is no better time than now, because you may not have a later. Today may be your last day. You may die in an hour. Wouldn't you rather die trying to accomplish something? Or maybe you die in 6 months, and what you're going to do right now is going to create the best next 6 months for you. And so I think doing now and building that habit is crucial for overcoming fears.
Dude, I loved that analogy of like overthinking is adding bricks to that wall. Because it truly is. Like when you think of like the wall is like yay high, it's waist high. And it's a little uncomfortable climbing over really quick, right? When you see somebody and you want to compliment them, there is that little uncomfortable push forward that you have to literally reach through and speak to somebody new and be like, hey, I really love your shirt. Like, that's a dope shirt. But there's that uncomfortable passing over that wall, climbing over really quick. Whereas if you think about it, like, that's a cool shirt. Should I go and compliment them? You're now adding a layer of bricks, and you're adding another layer of bricks, and another layer of bricks. Every thought, every possible thought is another row up that you have to like climb over uncomfortably. And by the point it's like as tall as you, and you're like, it's not worth it. They're already all the way over there now. They're already like, it's already 30 seconds have already passed. Whereas they were just like 5 feet from you. Now they're, 10 aisles from you. It's like, it's not worth it now. And that moment is past. That wall is so high. It's just like, it's just not worth it. And it's like we do this all the time. That's what overthinking is adding bricks to this wall and overcoming that. I love that. And it's kind of interesting is if it's just waist high jump, go now, quick. Like, make it happen. Do it. Because you are going to die one day. And like, you're going to regret the things you didn't do. Those are the only things you regret. I don't regret anything I've done. I don't fucking regret anything I've done. I've done a lot of crazy shit in my life. The only things I regret are the things I didn't do. The times people invited me to go to freaking New Zealand, and I was like, nah. Tanner, why didn't you go? You were 19. You would have avoided jail and all these other things. You should have just went. Like, there are these moments where like we get offered these moments. These like things that, like, that's wild. I don't know. I've never been there. It's like, just go, just do it. You can avoid tragedies and end up in some of the most beautiful experiences of your life. Like, I think about that. There was a point in my life where I was literally 19 years old and somebody offered, like, hey, come to New Zealand with me. And I was like, what? And I was like, and something in me was like, dude, do it, go. But then it was that fear of like, I've never been there. And then 6 months later, I ended up in jail as like a felon and whatnot. And I was stuck in Idaho. And I never thought about it after that. And it was like, Tanner, you should have just went. You should have just gone, dude. Like, you would have just been experiencing a whole new world and you wouldn't have dealt with all that other crap that you had gone through. And I think it's that like not taking a chance on the new experience is what holds us back and puts us in those detrimental spaces of those like not growing. It's the same thing as like waking up and not putting on your shoes and going to the gym. Instead, you like sit there and scroll. And what do you end up with? Regret. If you just put on your shoes and went to the gym, you would have jump-started your day, got a bunch of other stuff done. Instead, you're sitting at the end of a couple of hours and you haven't done anything. You've been scrolling for 3 hours and I should probably do my laundry. I can't really go to the gym right now. Maybe I can go to the gym later, whatever. And you're stuck with all of this regret. Versus as if you just jumped and went, got up and just gone. It's like, I'm going to die one day. I might as well go to the gym. Like, let's get going. It's that like overcoming that waist high wall instead of letting it turn into a, it's as tall as you or even bigger. So
Thinking about that, I'm thinking about the potential of action versus the potential of inaction. And I like to think about it's a quote that goes along with consistency, but it applies the same to here is, if you act, it might change your life. But if you don't, it guaranteed won't. And so in terms of like anything you want to face your fear, like let's say I want to go talk to this person, it might be my future wife, that person, or it might be like a best friend you're going to make for the rest of your life. Or let's say I want to go to the gym, and so you go to the gym, you might learn something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life because you took that action. It's just the potential of just one small action is infinite, but the potential of no action is it guaranteed won't do anything for you. And action's not going to do anything for you. And so the risk to reward ratio, I feel like, is insane because what risk is there? I mean, and that's where you got to look at fear versus caution. I'm jumping off a cliff. Is it safe? Have people done it before? Okay, that's caution. It is safe. What is there to fear then? So in terms of, talking to someone, what is there to fear? Like I said, the worst that can happen is they say you're a loser. But who does that? What are the odds? The odds are so low. And like I've said in podcasts before, of just talking to people, like the positive experiences are just about every time. And so we build these walls, and for what reason? Like the potential is so great. If we were to like see the potential, if we had the ability to see from God's eyes of a potential of just taking a small action to our goals, we would be doing it every single time and we would not miss, because the gamble you're playing is in your favor, crazy in your favor. Like you found that gambling machine that wins almost every time and you're going for it. I feel like if we had the big picture in our mind at all times and understood the concept and the percentage that our action will bring good rewards, like you win every time. It might be a huge win, it might be a tiny little win. You win every time. So even if, it might take your money, but that's where it's like you learn from it. So you keep going. So yeah, I think you got to look at your potential.
I think this ties back to an earlier episode where we were talking about how action is the catalyst that transmutates motivation into momentum. Action is the catalyst that turns that motivation into the moving forward and getting the things we want. It also reminds me of that quote by John C. Maxwell. I've repeated this so many times, but a man who does not remember the ultimate will always be a slave to the immediate. And I think the ultimate is death. Like, you're going to die one day. And if you don't keep that in mind, you're just going to be a slave to the immediate, to whatever is in front of you, whatever dopamine's readily available. You're like, I'm bored, not really thinking about the fact that I'm going to die one day. I'm just kind of chilling. Like, I have as many days. It's like endless time, whatever. Might as well just scroll and chill and do nothing. It's like, no, you're on a time crunch, dude. It's like, oh shit, I'm going to die one day. I might as well do something today. I might as well get moving today, like right now. And I think keeping the ultimate in mind is like, I have limited time left in this life. I might as well move forward. I think it ties into everything. It also reminded me of when we were talking about your life as like a stock. Is it moving up or moving down? And is it a stock you would bet on? And you said, well, it doesn't matter. You're all in anyways. And I was like, shit. Like, you're so right. You're all in. Like, you're gonna die. Might as well go for it. Like, yeah, you could die here. You could die in New Zealand. But like, you've never been to New Zealand. You've been here for 16 plus years, whatever. I don't know. Probably I don't know how many years it was at the time. 15 years. It's like, I'd already been in Idaho for so long. Why not try something else? And if I died, who cares? It'd be dope. Tanner died in New Zealand. Dope story. Like, cool. But I think just keeping that ultimate in mind, so you're not a complete slave to the immediate. You're not a slave to the immediate dopamine rushes that are immediately available to us at all times. And that ties into just the 98% of people that are drifting through life. They're just drifting to death. I think they're a good reminder to us that it's like, we could be that, but we're not. Thank fucking God. And I think that's what they're there for, is to remind us, like, hey, we could just drift all the way to death. Just all the way. That would suck. That would be painful to get to the end of your life and it's like, hey man, I scrolled for 50 years. Oh God, it makes me want to throw up. That's brutal.
I feel like I thought of a comparison right now. I think life is like sitting at a poker table, and you're playing with a few contestants. You got, death on one end, and you got being Ron on the other. There's a few players, but I feel like every time you have the best hand, and you're all in, and all you have to do is play your cards. That's all you gotta do. Is play the cards you have in your hand. But I feel like so many people, they won't play the cards. Like they'll fold. Who would fold at an all-in game.
Mhm.
A lot of people, they're not thinking about it. It reminds me of a quote I heard from Earl Nightingale. It's about a dad who asks his son, say, "Son, there's a goose who lays golden eggs. And then you have tons of golden eggs as well. Would you buy a golden egg or would you buy a goose?" And the son says, "Of course I buy the goose. He lays the golden eggs." And he says, "You're right, but in life people don't think that way. In life people are going for the eggs. They're not going for the goose." And so I think it's the same concept, is we're not playing the long game. We're playing the short game. We're going for the pleasures, the little wins. The fear. We're going into fear. Like, oh, I have the best hands in the poker game, but I'm just gonna take little wins. It's just, I feel like we're just not seeing the big picture. We're not going for the goose. We're settling for comfort rather than bracing and fighting and working out, tackling our health, going after our goals, talking to people, meeting people, establishing good relationships. Instead of we're just scrolling, we're being antisocial, we're waiting, basically just waiting till death, letting life take us. And it's extremely sad when we have the best hands to play in life and that golden goose is up for grabs.
Playing as an NPC instead of the main character. I would hate to be the NPC, man. That's something I like to think about. Like, I got a post a while ago about that. It's like, I can't remember what all it said, but I guess it's just conquering fear mostly just comes down to realizing that you are the main character. Like you're here, you're all in, and you're gonna die. Like that's very real. And something that kind of like kills me is that I feel like a lot of the decisions I've avoided making or put off making in my life um, were governed by like a fear. And when I actually finally approached those things, the outcome that I thought was like terrible was non-existent. Like it just wasn't actually there. Like I'd say 90% of the things that I thought were super dreadful and I overthought so much when I finally got to that like actual moment. I'd say 99% of them that I overthought and I like the decisions that I put off and put off and put off and was like, I don't want to deal with this. And I finally just bit the bullet and was like, all right, I'll just deal with it no matter how bad it is, whatever the answer is. And I did the thing. It was the problem itself was like immediately solvable, or like the response I got was like ideal. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Why did I fear this for like 3 years? Why did I fear this for like a whole year? What the fuck? I wasted all of that time. That's time that you like don't get back. This is something that I was talking to my brother about, is like those moments we spend in fear, we're not doing anything else really. Like if you're trying to watch the sunset and you're afraid of a bill or you're afraid of something else and you're thinking about this thing, you're not there in that moment. You're spending that currency of a moment on that thing you're afraid of, on that thing you're avoiding, on that decision that you can't make. So you're not fully in the moment. And I think the longer you spend worrying about a decision, worrying or fearing a decision, is robbing you of the moments you have. And I had that post yesterday and my cousin had commented on it. And I told him that our moments have a currency-like value to be spent. That's why we say, oh, we spent time. Because it's the same as spending money. And you have an allotment of it this time. You have a certain amount that you have for your entire life. Unlike money you can gain or whatever you get more of, when it comes to your time, you can't really get much back. In reality, you're just spending by the moment. You've got 100 years, break that up into however many pennies, and or dollars or whatever, and you're just throwing that money at something. And whether you're throwing it into the abyss of stress or whether you're throwing it into an adventure, Like you're throwing it at something and it's always coming out, no matter what. Those moments are coming out of you and you're spending them, whether you want to or not. And that's something that I was thinking about yesterday. Is like, I don't want to spend that currency on scrolling. Like, I don't want to spend it on an abyss that's going to give me nothing in return. Or at least give my posterity nothing in return. My family nothing in return. My friends nothing in return. Like, I would rather do this. I'd rather talk with, like, my best friend. I'd rather be on the phone with my brother. Like, I'd rather go to the beach, go surfing. I'd rather work out. I'd rather build something than spending that currency of moments on literally nothing, on a fear that's not even real. It's just a thought that I had.
I like that. Thinking about that, a thought I had was investing your time versus spending it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you said you can't get much time back, but sometimes you can if you invest it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I invest my time in the gym, I am getting some time back. If I invest some time in health, I am getting some time back. But that's not the only thing you can invest in is time back. Is I can invest in other things. Is I can invest in some of my goals or some of my dreams or a business, and I could make success down the road. So I think in terms of spending your time, thinking of investing it is a lot more rewarding than spending it. So, I'm going to spend my time on social media. Like, I'm going to spend my time watching this show. Or am I going to invest my time doing what I don't want to do because that's going to bring up a reward down the road and actually bring a lot greater value than the actual time I spent. And that's the beauty of money. If you read anything about money, is like no one wants to work hour per hour and getting that hourly wage. You want to get that residual income. You want to get more value for every hour you spend working. And that's essentially the goal in life too, is you want to take the hard time now and spend the hard hours now, when down the road you get these unlimited benefits that you don't even have to spend time on.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a cool idea in terms of spending your time is just invest it and reap the rewards down the road.
Dude, that's really cool. Investing your time instead of spending your time. Like when you're reading a book, you're investing your time. You're banking on some knowledge that's going to give you a reward of freed time later. And investing your time in the gym is going to give you more free time to run around with your kids later versus being in a wheelchair or whatever and not being able to do a lot. Investing your time versus spending your time. Because we can always spend our money on shit. We can always spend it on a dopamine rush. We can go and spend it on a soda, get a quick dopamine rush. Or that money can be invested. And it's the same thing with our time. It's like we can spend our time scrolling, but we won't get anything back from it. We can spend our time building something with a friend or building something with a sibling or invest it in a new skill. Like I love to surf. And I see that as an absolute investment of my time. Like when you're surfing, you are 100% in the moment. Like you are all there. You can't not be there. Like you have to be there. And it's an investment of time. And my cardiovascular health, it's an investment on my physical strength, it's an investment on my endurance. Like it gives me back time. Not only that, it gives me the best. Not only does it reap the reward in the moment. Not only do I get such a greater high in the moment of like riding a wave, like the difference of a high on a wave versus scrolling, I'm telling you right now, scrolling gives you like 1% dopamine compared to like riding a wave, which is like 100% dopamine. And not only am I getting that reward immediately when I get those waves, is later, like in life, in my week when I'm working and I have to do difficult things, they're not difficult. They're a lot easier than they are for other people. Like some people find some of the tasks we have at work very difficult. But because I'm active, because I take care of myself, like I'm able to do a lot of other things. I'm able to breathe a lot easier. I'm able to sleep a lot more soundly. Like, I do believe it's an investment on later in my life. Like, I do believe I'm getting a lot more later because of it. And it's that investment of time versus that spending of time. If I were to just spend time scrolling versus investing my time surfing, I would hate my life, man. Like, if I were to spend my time scrolling instead of investing my time working out, I would hate my life. If I were to spend my time scrolling versus investing my time reading, bro, I can see why so many people are depressed.
I think you could look at it as a metaphorical store where you're at in your life, and you got the store, and you got your I got some time watching movies. Oh, I got some time watching social media. You got all these little cheap items, and then you got the really expensive items. It's like there you got all your skills. All your skills are over there, and then you got all your successes. They're over there. Maybe playing with your grandchildren's over there, and you can't afford any of that. You can't afford any of it. But what you can do is you can do an investment plan. Say, oh, all you had to do is from here and there down the road, you just make these small payments of your time, and then you could have this down the road. That's all you have to do. And you're like, heck yeah, I think it's like the goose and the egg type of deal. Is like any of us would be like, you know what? That's actually not that bad of a deal. That's actually not that much time for the value of that item. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing the pleasure items at the cheap ones. Like, I could afford that right now. That's only. But in really, instead of investing the time long term and making that big item, instead we're spending it on that, and then we're going back to the store and we're spending on that, and we're back to the store and spending on that. When really it would take less money or less time to buy the big things. And so I think of it as in investing in stocks. Anyone could be like, I'm not going to be a millionaire. Why would I do that? And then they spend their money on crap like fast food, video games, whatever, right? Instead of just consistently spending some money and putting it in the market, and they end up being a millionaire because that accumulates. The price actually builds. It's not the value price you put in. And a lot of people don't see that in terms of physical money and physical stocks. And in the metaphorical concept I just said, is all we have to do is make these little payments and we could get these really awesome things, really awesome reward. But instead, we just keep on going back to that store. We keep on buying those cheap things because that's what we see. And we're like, yeah, we can afford that.
And for anybody that thinks that you can't make money on the stock market, I highly urge you to read the book, The Psychology of Money. If you want to take a safer route to investing and understand the safer route to like long-term investing. God, I keep having this thought that keeps popping in my mind and I want to bring it up and then I keep forgetting it. I think I got it. There was something I posted a while ago and it said, I think it was along the lines of the road to satisfaction. No, the road to, gosh, what was it? It was along the lines of pleasure and self-annihilation. I can't remember. Let me see if I can find it really quick. It was it was just putting, because I know a lot of people that spend time on pleasures, on like social pleasures. And I mean like when I'm talking people that brag about watching pornography or engaging in casual like sexual encounters and stuff like that. And it's this like pleasure filled life. It's very like pleasure filled. But these people that talk about these things are incredibly depressed. In fact, I don't know any of them that aren't incredibly depressed. And I remember thinking about this pretty extensively one day and coming to the realization that the road to pleasure is the road to self-annihilation. Where was it? Let's see. Here it is. The path of pleasure is the road to self-annihilation. And I truly believe that, is that when we're constantly seeking pleasure, it's just a fast route to self-annihilation, of destroying that end goal. It's like you said, you could be putting money in the stock market long term, just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. You don't have to put a lot, but you could put a little bit into like the S&P 500, into some very simple like long-term stocks that have great benefits in the long term. Like you look at the last 20, 30, 50 years, and they just keep rising. Granted, it's a slow rise, but it continuously doubles. Not year after year, but I mean, some years it does. And it wouldn't take a lot to become a millionaire. Like, it wouldn't take that much time. And I think that's especially in the psychology of money, it talks a lot about that and how investing and compounding that money works is like you're just taking away from the immediate pleasures. It's like you're not spending the money on like the soda, the trash meal. You're going home and cooking. So you're saving a little bit of money, and that money that you save, you put into the stock market. You put into an investment. And it's not much in the moment, but that money grows. And I think that's really important, is like sacrificing the immediate for the ultimate. It's like, I want the ultimate, like spending time with my kids, my grandchildren, being able to do these things. And because I want that, I'm going to sacrifice the immediate, that little rush, that sugar, that high. I'm going to spend time on the actual relationship at hand instead of casual relationships. Like a lot of people want to spend their moments on these casual encounters, and they're not actually building the long-term relationship or building themselves for the long-term relationship. Like there's that argument. Like a lot of people will spend their time on these casual encounters, whereas they don't have a good viable option of a partner at the moment. And the best bet is to read a book, grow themselves, so that in the long term, when they do meet that right person, it's like, oh, here I am, fully ready, versus that person who spent just all of their time in casual encounters, and it's like, oh, I am nothing. I think that's something to think about.
Talking about the pleasures and everything, just thinking about not pursuing the pleasures, the action of actually facing difficulties and discomfort. One thing that I've found to be extremely useful and is finding satisfaction in the discipline itself. For example, the other day I ran a 5K, and it's been a long time since I ran a 5K. And just leading up to it, it's not fun. You get in your head and you're like, oh, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. And I'm running it again tomorrow. I was like, oh. But if you build this attitude and this fortitude and create this image of your head and who you want to be, like, who do I actually want to be? It becomes extremely, extremely satisfying to do that discipline. Like after I ran that, it was extremely satisfying. And another example is when I was losing weight, I was cutting down, and just thinking about all these sweets and things that I could be having, it got in my head. It got in my head, and I'm like, oh, I'm depressed. What am I even doing? I could be eating what I want. And it was hard to keep up. But then something in me switched, and it was like, you know what? Who am I? And that's where, like, every day, and then watching that scale go down, every discipline that I made, it became extremely satisfying. In my head, I'm like, oh, this is who I am. I am this awesome guy. And I think everyone should have that in their head. Like, who are you? Are you this awesome person who can do these awesome things? Then do them. Like, you are capable of doing them. And I think there is truly satisfaction in discipline if you find it. And a big part of that, I think, is who you're with. Finding support systems, like with friends and stuff. Like after I ran that 5K, I messaged you. It's like, hey man, dude, I just did this. And it's just like partly bragging, but having someone that will support you is, I think, also critical in terms of like keeping that mentality up. First, establish who you are, and then be around people who will support you in that and will encourage you. And when you do something crazy, you can message them and they're like, heck yeah.
Mhm.
And so there's truly satisfaction in the disciplines and satisfaction that lasts, unlike the pleasures. The pleasure ends and then it's regret, as in the satisfaction that will hold on, for a minimum like a week. You're like, yeah, I did this. So I think that's a really cool part.
It's actually kind of interesting you brought that up. When you messaged me about that 5K, I remember reading that and being like, holy shit, man. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect you to be doing something like that. And so to hear that was like exciting and it was motivating too. And I mean, you probably didn't even realize it, but you made an investment of an impact. And it reminded me, it's like, oh, shoot, I gotta run. I gotta catch up to him. I gotta move. Like, gotta start moving more. And I guess we don't realize how much of an investment we're making when we're doing those things for ourselves. So like when you did that 5K for yourself and you were able to share it, like that impact spreads out. It's like, shit, gotta move. Like you lighting up and making an investment on your future. And it is something that is going to reap the reward. Like you're going to reap the rewards for a long time. Like that cardiovascular health, like, and that knowledge and knowing that you can do that will repeat itself. And not only that, that like movement of energy and sharing that energy with me was like, shit, he can do it. Like, I need to get back and running. Holy shit. I need to keep doing this. I need to keep running. I need to keep running. And it makes that magic, that joy, like spread out and kind of ignite other sectors of our life. And I know that like it repeats itself in numbers in different ways. And like I was sharing my leg press with you yesterday, and I know that probably sparked something in you. You're like, shit, gotta get there. And it's those little and that's what we're doing, is we're investing in each other when we get to share those moments. Not only are we investing in ourselves in the moments of doing those things, but we're investing in other people's time and their longevity as well when we have that support system. So I think it's really cool that you brought that up, because I still am thinking about that. Like 5K, I've got to do a 5K now. I've got to do a 5K now. I've got to do a 5K. Like shit, I got to do it. Like because you did it. And so now it's like, all right. And it's the impact is immeasurable. And it adds value all around us when we make those investments on ourselves. And the more people we can bring into those moments, like the better. I mean, and I know like right now it seems like it's just us, and there are other people we get to share those kinds of things with, but it's kind of funny because those things will transmutate, like they'll transmute into other people. Like you sharing that with me is going to end up transmuting over to Kaylee, and she's going to be like, we have to run. And I'm like, shit, yeah, we do. And who knows? Like, you went and ran, somebody saw you, right? Somebody's like, shit, I got to do that. I need to run. I need to run. And like, I'm going to go out and run at some point this week, and somebody's going to see me and they're going to be like, shit, I got to run. I got to invest in myself. And it's kind of cool. We don't understand the actual investment we're making, but it pays us over and over and over again, not only us, but our friends and our posterity and like the rest of our life. And I think that's really cool to like think about, is when you conquer that fear of like, I don't want to do this thing, but I'm going to do this thing anyway because I believe in myself and I want to become this person. Like not only is it going to pay you once in the joy of accomplishing that task, like traveling to that other place, running that 5K, it's going to pay you over and over for the rest of your life. And not only you, but like your friends, your children, like your friends' friends, people you don't even know, people you've never even met. It's going to like affect them because you invested that time. And I think that's really cool. It's that unseen side of things, that overcoming that fear of running that 5K has affected the unseen for you, things you can't even see. And I think that's really cool, because it goes far beyond death. And I think that's I don't know, just something that really like I like about that. Just simply just running that 5K.
I think it just goes back to like unlimited potential of just taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And you said in terms of like, someone may have saw me or something. It's just there's this lady that runs most mornings, and she'll say good morning to me when I'm walking by or something, and just she doesn't realize the potential that she makes in me. Even though I'm extremely physically active, I see her, I'm like, oh, like I need to run today too, and just the unlimited potential of taking a step over that wall and facing your fear. I just don't think we see it when you just got to really deeply understand that every action you take is going to have awesome consequences down the road. Unlimited potential. So
I like that. The unlimited reward of taking action. You don't see it, but it's worth it. And it's so much more worth it than we realize. Sometimes it's not immediate. Most of the time we do get an immediate reward from it, but then there's also sometimes delayed rewards that we don't really see until later. And by the time you're 60 years old, you're probably still going to be running. And you will have friends that are 60 years old, and they will not be running. And they will be in wheelchairs, or they will be dead because they overate, because they scrolled a little too much. And it's dark, but it's real. It's like you made that investment. And that investment not only affected you, but it affected other friends that you have that saw you or that participated in it. Like we have friends that don't go to the gym with us or probably don't work out with us or that we don't speak to anymore. But who knows? Maybe those friends are still working out a little more consistently because of it. We don't see it, but that unknown like ripple effect of impact keeps hitting over and over. And I think that constant investment in ourselves will always be worth it. We know what we want out of it. We see what we want out of it. But I think that there's a lot more golden potential that's being planted that we will reap later on because of it. And it's getting that goose that lays the golden eggs that it's unseen. Like, can't really tell, but we know we're getting those golden eggs. We keep getting them. Like, damn, I don't know. I got the goose somehow. It's kind of cool to think about.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, let's go over goals. What was your goal last week?
I was running, I think.
Nice.
So I did do that. I did do I ran a 5K, a mile and a half, and some sprints. So I'm gonna continue that. Really good for running. So in terms of new goal, I definitely want to go back towards like old goals in terms of social goals. Like it was a video I sent you the other day was this guy, and he literally is just like going from person to person and complimenting them. I thought that was really cool. And there was a person that didn't even like respond to him. He's like, yeah, they may not have liked it, but who cares? And he understands. That's the thing, is he's starting to understand the potential of facing his fears that comes from that. And so along those lines, I'm going to create a goal of just small. Right now, I'm going to do one person a day complimenting, and I'm going to aim for that. See what I can do.
I like it. It's good. It is always hard complimenting people in public, but it's fun. It ends up becoming addicting. Trying to think. Last week, I think my goal was to build momentum on my reading because I wasn't reading as much as I was. And that didn't. I mean, it was all right. I read one book last week, which, compared to the momentum I had before, is not as good. But I am still hitting my goal of at least one book a week. So I'm a little disappointed in myself, but work was really busy. So, okay, don't make excuses. So I did finish a book this last week. So this week, I would like to build momentum on my reading habit, but mainly get a label made. That is my goal this week. I need a label done and finished for our first product. So That's my goal this week. Just get the label made, the nutrition, supplementation facts, all that just made and ordered. I want that ordered by the time we record our next episode. That's my goal this week. Just get that shit done. It's not that hard. I can do it. Just need to do it. That's it. That's my goal.
Sweet.
All right. That concludes episode 35. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's 30 to 35, yeah.
35 of 2 Minutes to Life. We will see you guys next week.